Hey everyone, I just thought I'd put together a quick little video for you about the Capstone project. This is primarily going to focus on like finish and polish and linking and some of the softer things that I'll be looking for in the project. If you have taken a look at the rubric, I've sent out multiple posts about making sure, reminding people to make sure you go take a look at the rubric, take a look at how you'll be graded on the assignment. If you have, you'll notice that the vast majority of the marks aren't on the accuracy of the project, but rather some of the other soft skills like professionalism and polish. So one of the outcomes that I want for everyone from this project is just how do we put together a package that looks professional that I could submit for review to a bank or a board of directors. So it's not just about the numbers and making sure the numbers are right. It's how does everything link together? How should I link an Excel file so I have reusability in the future? How should I use my colors and my graphs and my charts? So we won't touch on all those things in this project, or in this video, but I will touch on some of the main things that I'll be looking for as far as the things that stick out to me when I review a file, as far as the finish and the polish goes. So on the screen here, you'll notice this is your project, Blondia Rocks. Okay, I'm on the instructions tab right now. You've got a list of instructions that you need to, deliverables that you need to complete. And then the second tab is the account and data file tab. Now, one of the things I wanted to point out, and you should have noticed by now, is that anytime there is a specific number on the page that I want you to look at or to use, it's in its own cell, right? So in bullet point number 2 here, where it says, in conversations with the auditors, it is believed that Blondia Rocks will be required to make monthly income tax installments during 2020 of $87,000. Right? That $87,000 is a number that you're going to need for the cash budget. So on the cash budget, there will be a line for you to fill in the cash disbursement section for income tax installments. Rather than have you type in $87,000 in that document, I want you to link the cell. So you'll notice that $87,000 in tax installments in bullet point number 2 is in its own cell. What that allows you to do is, when we scroll all the way down here to our cash budget, and I see the line here for income tax installments, I don't have to physically type in $87,000 here. That doesn't make sense. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say, I'm either going to hit my equal sign, or you can hit the plus sign. Either way, either one of those will work, right? So I'll hit equals, and then I'm going to come all the way back to the beginning. I'm going to go to the accountant data file tab. Right, I'm going to click on it, and I'm just going to click on that cell that shows the $87,000. Now, if you look up in the top in the formula bar near the top of the page here, you'll notice that it now says equals accountant data file F27. What that's doing is it's saying, okay, I'm going to go look at the accountant data file tab, and I'm going to take the number that you put in F27. Right? So once you click on that cell F27, I want you to just hit enter. Now, it'll take you back to your cash budget, and you'll notice it now says $87,000, but rather than be hard-coded, that number is now cell referenced, which is a very important function in Excel. Many of you, most of you, should know how to do this or understand that concept. In business, it's a very important thing, and here's why. Let's say that we're working on a budget or we're working on some numbers, and something changes. One of our estimates changes. Okay, rather than go back in and have to try and remember every single spot where we use that number, this $87,000, rather than try and remember all the different areas where we may have used that number and go back in and manually update them, what we can do is we can come all the way back here to the starting page and we can just modify this number. So let's say I tell you that the income tax installments aren't expected to be $87,000, they're expected to be $90,000 for the coming year. Well, all I have to do is update the accountant data file, the source location, and anywhere else I have that cell referenced will automatically update. So if we go back to the cash budget, you'll notice it now says $90,000. Okay, so it automatically updates when you do your cell referencing. This is a very important function. This allows us to create a document that can be used and modified and changed very quickly. So if you're working on this for a manager or for someone else or for the CFO, and he or she comes to you and wants some very quick adjustments made and some new reports run, rather than have to reinvent the wheel every time, all we have to do is change our inputs and the whole document will automatically update for us. So this is one of the things that I'll be looking for. And if you look at the grading rubric, there is a significant portion of your grades associated with linking. So on all of these tabs, the budgeted balance sheet, the ended and finished goods, direct labor, manufacturing overhead, all of these tabs where you're going to be filling in your budgets, I will be going through, and if I see any numbers here that are hard-coded, you will lose the grade for that tab. So you have to make sure that you cell reference everything, which again is the reason why on the account data file tab, every single number that you might need to reference has been put into its own cell so that you can cell reference. Okay? Now, as far as presentation goes, I'm going to very quickly take a look at the sales budget here. Okay? Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the ending finished goods budget because I know I already have a header set up. And I'm going to copy that and I'm going to paste it across to the sales budget just to save myself some time. Okay? Now, what you might have noticed is the Excel may be preventing you from doing certain functions like merging and centering cells and modifying cells. Okay? The reason that is because the document is currently set to be shared amongst your group mates. Now, if you take a look here, you can see Blondia Rocks Budget Project version 2 online, this title up here. You'll see that it says shared in the header. What we want to do is we want to get rid of that. So we're going to go to the Review tab, and there's a little icon here in the ribbon that says Share Workbook. Okay, so again, go to the Review tab at the top, right? So there's Home, Insert, Page Layout. Come across to Review tab, click on it. I want you to click on Share Workbook. Okay, and you'll see that the first thing in the editing section, it says allow changes by more than one user at the same time. This also allows workbook merging. We don't want to be able to do this. It doesn't necessarily work all that well, and it doesn't work like you think it would. So what we're going to do is we're just going to deselect that and say OK. Right? And it says this action will remove this workbook from shared use, and we're going to say yes, that's fine. Once we do that, okay, and you come back to the Home tab here on the ribbon, you'll notice that all of a sudden we can merge and center now. This is one of the things that is important when you're putting together a project. So the merge and center. When you have titles, you want them to be centered across all the content, right? That's just kind of a basic idea. So to do that, I'm going to click and hold in the A2 slot. If I was doing the title of the budget, I'm going to drag across for as far as many cells as I want to merge and center, and then I'm going to click the merge and center, and what it's going to do is it's going to take all those cells, make it one cell, big cell, and put the wording or the content right in the middle. It's going to center align them. Now, if I still wanted to left or right align, I could do that up here in the alignment section. I could left align it, I could right align it, or I could leave it centered. For titles, you're probably going to want to leave those centered. So I'll do the same thing for the date as well, right? So this is, and we're not doing the ending finished goods, this is going to be the sales budget. So I'm just going to type that in. All right, so Blondia Rocks Inc. sales budget for the quarter ended March 31st, 2020. Okay? Now for this project, you will be doing the budget for 3 quarters. We are going to be looking at January, we are going to be looking at February, March, and then for all of these sections, or for all of these budgets, you're going to want a total column. Now I'm just going to change that font so that it's black. Okay. All right. So January, February, March. Again, notice all these things by default, all words by default are left aligned. I want you to center those things. So I'm going to highlight the cells, and I'm going to center the content. Again, it's just a small finishing touch, but it's things that I will notice, and that people looking at your projects and your files and in the future your business proposals, it's those little things that people notice, and it communicates, you know, how much effort was put into this presentation. Okay, now to complete the sales budget, the wording may not be that I'm going to use here may not be exactly the same as the overhead slides, but in essence, right, the sales budget is composed of 3 lines. How many units are we going to sell? What are we going to sell them for? And what's the total revenue going to be from those sales? So I'm going to say units to be sold The second line is going to read sales price per unit. And then the third line is going to say total sales. Okay? Those ones there, those words there, it's okay to have those left aligned. Okay? Now, when it comes to units to be sold, you should for sure have the sales budget done by now, but I'll just show you very quickly how I would go about putting it together. If you go back to the account data file tab, you'll notice that bullet point number 4 gives us a whole bunch of information about how our sales are going to come to be for the current year. So you'll notice we're doing the year 2020 in this version of the project. So in the year 2020, we're planning on selling 8.2 million units at $5.10 each. Now, that doesn't mean I can just go to the sales budget and take 8.2 million units and divide it by 12 to say I'm going to sell this many units per month, because we don't sell the product equally across all the months. So the next section in bullet point number 4 in the account data file tab shows us the allocation of when we will be selling our product. So for example, we plan on selling 8.2 million units over the course of 2020. 7% of those will be sold in January. Okay? Now, I could very easily bring out a calculator or do it on my cell phone, 8.2 million times 7% to get the number of units, and then come over here to the sales budget and just manually type that number in. But again, remember, we want to cell reference as much as possible. So when I do the calculation, I'm going to let Excel do the calculation for me. I'm going to do it right in the cell itself. So again, you're going to start with either an equals or a plus sign, it doesn't matter which, and you're going to click on the account and data file tab. Okay, and now rather than type in 8.2 million, I'm just going to click on the cell for 8.2 million. Okay, so I want to take 8.2 million units, and I'm going to multiply that, so you hit the multiplication symbol, and you click on the percentage of sales that will occur in January, which is 7%. Once you've got that in, it's taking cell C38 and multiplying it by cell C45 on the account and data file tab. You're going to hit enter. And the number you come up with, or should have come up with, is 574,000. That means of the 8.2 million units, we plan on selling 574,000 in the month of January. Okay? And then I'm going to leave that there like that. Now, the next item I need is the sales price per unit. Again, I could manually type this in. It's not going to change based on the information I have month over month. But what happens if we change our estimates? Okay, so we don't want to hard code that. Once again, we're just going to cell reference. So I'm going to hit my equals or my plus sign. I'm going to click on the account and data file tab, and I'm going to come up here to the top part of bullet point number 4, where it says we plan on selling those 8.2 million units for $5.10 a piece. So I'm going to just reference the $5.10 cell, and I'm going to hit enter. Okay, so there we go. 574,000 units times $5.10 will give me my total sales. Now, again, let Excel do the formula for you. The formula to calculate total sales is simply the number of units you plan on selling, which is 574,000, multiplied by the price you can sell those for, which is $5.10. So the total sales are $2,927,400. Great, it's done. Okay, you can do the same thing for all the other months, right? We can do it for February, and actually maybe I should spell February right. Okay, February. Okay, you can do the calculation for February. Again, back to the account and data file tab, we have 8.2 million units being sold for the year. 15% of those will be sold in February, so that's the equivalent of 123,000 units. I can either go back to the account and data file tab and reference the $5.10 again, or I can just reference the cell beside me because that number is not changing, so that's $5.10. And I can also just copy and paste the formula along the bottom for the total sales figure, right? Because it's going to be the same formula. It's going to be units sold multiplied by the sales price per unit. So once you have the formula entered once, you can just copy it across and it'll work just fine. Okay. If I just finish this out really quickly, I'll do March as well. 8.2 million units multiplied by 4% is 328,000 units at $5.10 a unit. That's the equivalent of $1,672,800. Okay. At any time, if you feel like you're falling behind, just pause the video, get yourself caught up, and then restart the video. Okay. Now, in total, across the first 3 months, it looks as though we're planning on selling 2,132,000 units. Okay, at a price of $5.10 per unit. Remember, the price per unit don't sum up this row here. Okay, if you added 5.10, 5.10, and $5.10 together, you'd get what, $15.30. And we do not sell these products for $15.30 a piece. We sell them for $5.10. So it's okay to add up the units to be sold as a summary item, but not the price per unit. So in total, we plan on selling $10,873,200 worth of product across the first quarter, right? That's great. That's awesome. Now here's what I want to talk about, and this is where the finish and the polish comes in. So you got a sense of how I expect you to link the document, and the way I've been linking this and cell referencing is what I expect you to do across all of your budget tabs. Okay, I don't want to see hard-coded information anywhere in the project. So one thing I want to talk about is the finish. If you're noticing, when I read this number right here, this 2,132,000. When I first looked at it, I wasn't sure if it was 213,000, 2,132,000, 21 million. It's readability, right? So formatting plays an important part or role in the readability of your project. So what I want you guys to do is focus on those finishing touches. Now take a look at that 2,132,000 as it sits right now. If I come up here and I just hit this comma, it means it's going to take that and turn it to a comma delimited style. As soon as I click that cell, that comma, look at how much easier that number is to read. It's now very plain to see that the units to be sold are 2,132,000. Okay, so I want to do that across all of these numbers. I'm going to put the comma style in. Now note, because these are units to be sold, they're not dollar amounts. I don't want to see dollar signs there. Okay, they're units. So there's no dollar amount beside them. But I want to see those commas because it makes it very easy for me to see 574,000, 1.23 million. It makes it much easier to see. Okay, so that's the first comment, is that I want to see that type of form. Make sure you're putting your commas where they belong, your dollar signs where they belong. The next comment I will make, okay, has to do with decimal places. All right, so sometimes decimal places are relevant and you should show them, and other times they're absolutely not. So for example, if I'm looking at this number right here, 2,132,000, it's a very large number. The decimal points, I'm not selling, I'm not, nor could I make and sell partial units. So those decimals are always going to be zero. They add nothing to that number. It just adds clutter. It adds extra numbers that are on the screen that I don't need to see. So whenever you have that, whenever you have decimal places that are irrelevant, I want you to highlight all the cells that you want to get rid of the decimals. And then you see these numbers up here under the accounting section in the number box. You see the decimals with the left arrow and the decimals with the right arrow. One is either going to add more decimal places. So I clicked it once, you can see it now has 3 decimal places, and one is going to decrease the number of decimal places you see. Now, the decimal still exists, and Excel will still calculate an amount if there's a decimal there. It's just how do you want to view it, and I don't want to see it. So I'm going to click until I see no decimal places. Now to me, that is a much cleaner view of the units to be sold. I have my commas in, I don't have any decimal places that are irrelevant and just adding clutter to the report. Okay, it's a very clean top line. Now, when it comes to the second line here, the sales price per unit, this is one of those times where decimals may be relevant. Okay, in per unit data, where we sell things for $5.10, or it has a charge of 17 cents per unit. When you have smaller numbers, and they're typically per unit numbers, it is okay to leave the decimal places. Those numbers become relevant, because $5 shows quite differently than $5.10 if I get rid of the decimals. So in per unit information, like as in the sales price, I want to see those decimals. Okay. Now finally, the last little bit here has to do with large numbers. Okay, again, we're still talking about the decimal places, and we're talking, all of this stuff is all about the finishing touches, right? So the last few things I want to talk about, one of which is decimal places on larger numbers. So let's say, for example, we're trying to make a decision on whether or not we think our sales are at an acceptable level. And I'm trying to decide between $10,873,200 and $10,873,200.15, right? That 15 cents isn't going to change my decision in any way. It's completely irrelevant, right? The 15 cents is so minor and so minute that it doesn't make my rounding. It's not important to me, so therefore don't show it to me, right? That's the mindset we need to take. When we present a project, or when we put a proposal in front of someone, we want to give them all the information they need to make their decision, but we also want to make it easy for them to read and understand. So when you look at all these big numbers across the bottom here, none of those decimal places are adding any value to that. Even if there were pennies involved there, 56 cents, 27 cents, it wouldn't matter. It wouldn't change our decision. So what I want to do is I want to highlight those. Oops. And I want to get rid of the decimals for those as well. So when you're talking about very large numbers, I don't want to see the decimals. And in fact, if you were to go look online at, say, Apple's, right? Apple's financial statements, go take a look at them. They round at much higher levels, to the hundreds of thousands and maybe even millions of dollars, right? It's all about the size of your company and what's relevant and what's not. And in this case, decimal points are irrelevant to our decision, so we will not include them. We will not show them, because it's not going to change our decision. Okay? So that's all I want to say about commas and decimal places. We've talked about making sure your headings were centered across the data. Okay? The last piece I want to talk about is underlining. Okay? Now, underlining is a bit of a preference thing. What do you think looks good versus what do I think looks good? Now, you should put underlining to show the reader of your financial report when calculations are being done. So, for example, I'm taking $574,000 and multiplying it by $5.10. So I should have a line under there. As soon as I put a line under there, the reader knows, okay, this number is being taken and is being multiplied by that number here to get the total sales. Okay, I can see that. You added a line for me. Okay, so I want to see that. In addition to that, when you get to the bottom of your report, you want to let them know that, hey, this is the end of the report. Now, in the font section of the ribbon up here, on the home ribbon, there's a little drop down by the box, and you get to pick which borders you want. And again, this is where your preference comes into play, right? For me personally, I like a top line and a double bottom border. So when I click on that, you can see that it puts a top line on each of those cells to let me know, hey, there's a calculation going on above it. But then it does a double underline on the bottom to let the reader know that, hey, that's the end of my report. That's the end of my statement. Now, you can do top line, double bottom, up to you. You could do top line and thick bottom border, right? Whichever one you feel looks the best, absolutely use that one. But here's my caveat. Here's the thing I'm asking you to watch out for. Make sure you are consistent throughout the whole project. So however you deal with dollar signs, when do we display them? Do we display them on just the first line of a financial figure, or is it on every line? How you deal with your decimal places, how you deal with your underlining, how you deal with your wording, right? So you could call this the total column, you could call this the quarter total column, right? You could just call this quarter, right? Again, there's a number of different ways that you could present the report, and they're all fine, they're all absolutely valid, but you have to make sure you're consistent. I know in groups, multiple people will be working on multiple budgets, but one of the things you should do is at the very end of the project, you should be taking, as a group, a look through the entire project and making sure that all these formatting things are the same. So that even though it was multiple people putting it together, when I look at the project, it feels like it was one person doing the project, right? So what I don't want to see is that 574,000, 1,230,000. These things are shown without decimals, and then down here there's decimals, right? Or on another project, and I've seen this multiple times, where the first couple of cells might have decimal places, but the last couple don't, and that's just that got missed by quality control at the end of your project, right? Most often, all of these formatting mistakes that get made aren't because students don't know, or people completing the project don't know how to do it. It's most likely a time constraint, because students have spent so much time focusing on the accuracy and getting the numbers 100% right that they don't spend enough time on the finishing touches. And the finishing touches are just as, or actually more important than the accuracy of the project, right? First impressions are important. Anytime you submit a report to someone and you put it down in front of them, that first glance at the finishing touches is going to put a thought in their mind as to how much effort was put into the document that they're looking at. The better it looks, the more they will believe it was done well. Now, that doesn't mean that there doesn't have to be substance and quality within the document and the numbers themselves. But if I get a document that's just been slapped together and it's been stapled awkwardly and there's coffee stains on the front of it, my first impression is going to be like, well, they didn't really care about this, so I'm sure they've made mistakes. I'm sure of it. Even if they haven't, that's going to be my first impression. So what we're trying to do is get rid of those first impressions by having consistency on how we present and prepare all these numbers. So I want you to spend a lot of time when you're finalizing the project going through and doing that, making sure all of this formatting stuff looks the same. Now, there's also marks in there for coloration. Again, this is aesthetics. This is totally up to you how you as a group feel you want to incorporate this. You don't want it to be overbearing, so you don't want to have a yellow line here and to have the next line be a different color, and then the final line being, maybe it's green, right? That to me is, the color is taking over the report. It's very hard to see. So I'm not saying you need to do that, but add in splashes of color where you see fit. Maybe it's just on the total line that you want to show it. Maybe it's just in the quarter total that you want to show it. Maybe it's just in the headers. It doesn't matter to me, but this is where you can let your style come out. But again, be consistent. How you present and prepare this sales budget should mirror how you prepare the cash budget and the production budget and so forth. Be consistent. Okay? And the last thing I will mention, and that gets forgotten quite often, is the usage of graphs. Okay? So building some graphs, and so you can do right here, you can just go to the Insert tab, and you can insert different types of graphs and charts, right? You can highlight the information and you can insert these graphs and charts, right? You could do a bar chart, you could do a pie chart, you could do, a scattergram diagram. So pick which one you think fits. You don't have to do a chart for every single one of these tabs, but maybe go through the project, take a look at the different budgets, and pick the ones where you think a chart might make a difference, right? Oh, maybe that'll add some, because some people are visual. Right? So maybe for our sales, maybe I want a bar chart to show total sales to really highlight the fact that February is going to be our biggest sales month of the first quarter. You can see that in the numbers, but when you look at a pie chart or a bar chart and that bar for February is much higher than the other ones, that says, oh, hey, very clearly in my face that sales in February are going to be a key month for us. Okay? So fill in some charts where you see fit. And you can just slot those in right at the bottom of these budgets, right? And again, it doesn't have to be for everyone, but pick some where you think it might make sense. Okay? So at the end of the day, that's kind of what I wanted to talk about in this video. Your cell referencing, your finishing touches, your formatting. Okay, make sure it's consistent. And again, the cell referencing is super important because, again, remember, I reserve the right to change any number I want in the project. So I could tell you that, hey guys, guess what? We don't plan on selling 8.2 million units. We plan on selling 9 million units. Well, if I do that, that changes almost your entire project if I change the sales figure, right? Now, if you have everything referenced right here, you can see that we're selling 2.132 million units. If I come back in here and I put in that new information of 9 million units and I go back to my sales budget, you can see that it's already automatically updated. It went from 2.132 million to 2.34 million. I don't have to do any extra work other than update that core number. Okay, it all updates for me, right? And when you go down here to your production budget, that's probably the one. Schedule of cash receipts and production is the one you would have gone to after the sales budget, or you will go to after the sales budget. Don't type in 630,000 units to be sold into your production budget. Cell reference the 630,000 units right from the sales budget. So when the sales budget changes, the production budget also changes. Okay, so I hope that gives you some insight as to some of the things to watch out for and maybe how to go about linking your document and providing some finish and those finishing touches. If you have any questions, just email me. You can ask me. If there's a video that you'd like to see on any part of the project, absolutely just let me know. Hopefully things are going well, and